YouTube, what's up? Casey Dimon, TaxSaleAcademy.com. Thank you so much for joining me as a recorded episode for the Tax Sale Podcast. Of course, if you enjoy podcasts, check us out, TaxSalePodcast.com. You can download us on your favorite podcasting platform, and you can take us on the go. And of course, if you don't enjoy podcasts, you are more than welcome to watch me right here on YouTube. Just do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button, and also be sure you subscribe to our channel. Let's go ahead and switch on over to the audio portion right now. Welcome to the Tax Sale Podcast, where tax sale investing is made easy. My name is Casey Dimon. I'm a tax sale veteran. I'm the author of the Tax Sale Playbook, founder of the Tax Sale Academy. I'm the leading tax sale expert and trainer, and I am your host right here on the Tax Sale Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me on today's podcast. At the conclusion of this podcast, if you're looking to learn more about investing in tax-defaulted real estate, head on over to TaxSaleAcademy.com, and while you're there, you can join the Tax Sale Academy, which is the leading tax sale investment training platform. All right, today I want to talk about something that's probably not all that popular to talk about, especially in my space, right? I'm talking about failure. You see, I'm usually the one telling you the ways to see success in this business, strategies, techniques, things to watch out for, telling stories, showing a process, all that kind of fun stuff, right? And what you might not realize, however, is that by teaching you that stuff, I am actually teaching you about failure. I'm teaching you how to avoid failure. By showing you the way, by showing you the process, I'm teaching about failure, how to avoid it, okay? Just making that very, very clear right up front. I'm showing you the path to success, which automatically will take you away from that path to failure. But it still happens, right? Just a couple of weeks ago, I did a breakdown on a viral news story that involved a new tax sale investor's failure. And I've heard a number of stories like this. I hear them just about weekly now. But those stories, these are the precise reason that this business exists. That's the precise reason that my podcast exists. I don't want anyone to ever lose a single penny in this business, but I know it's inevitable. I know it's going to happen, but I'll always still do everything in my power to prevent that. That's the reason that I produce more tax sale training material than anyone else in the world. 500 plus YouTube videos, a podcast, my book, and of course, the premier tax sale investment training program, which is the Tax Sale Academy. But even with all this material, it just doesn't reach the hands of the people who seem to need it the most. And unfortunately, what happens is a lot of times they'll actually come and find me after they made a huge and very costly mistake. So today, I want to take a look at 5 common reasons that people fail in this business. Now, sometimes it's just one of these reasons that takes somebody down. Other times it's a combination of multiple reasons. Number 1, I call the first one shiny object syndrome. New tax sale investors can be extremely excited. Heck, even us old tax sale investors can be extremely excited at times. But this excitement sometimes can get very misguided. This is often what happens when you hear of horror stories. An investor knows that they should be doing research, but they see something they like. And what happens is it attracts all of their interest, all their attention, and they focus on the positives like crazy. And they tend to ignore all the negatives. Despite the reality saying the opposite, everything to them about the property is good. There's nothing wrong with it. The value, it usually gets overinflated. You think it's more profitable or more desirable than it really is. And this happens a lot. A common example is seeing a picture of a beautiful piece of property and you focus on the property itself, right? You focus on the background. You focus on what your eyes want to gravitate towards. But the only reason that photo is being shown is so the county can show you that they're actually selling the ditch that runs right in the center of that photo, but you don't see it. You look right past it, right? Another example is maybe you like to fish or maybe you like to boat and you see a lakefront property and it's intriguing because you're an outdoorsman, right? But that property is basically flooded. But you ignore that because it is on a lake and it'd be cool to fish from it. Perhaps it's your childhood home that you have sentimental attachment to. Maybe it's that cute little house that reminds you of something. It could even be something more intriguing, right? Like perhaps maybe a lighthouse. I've seen those things sell for crazy amounts of money before. What the heck is somebody going to do with a lighthouse that could be profitable? Come on now, guys. Don't get shiny object syndrome. Base all of your investments on actual data, not on your emotions. The second reason that I see people fail is that they lack the understanding of the process or of the laws. Too many people think tax sale investing is very simply buying properties and selling properties. So easy that anyone can do it without training, right? Unfortunately, this is what happens to a lot of people who end up failing quickly. They don't take the time to get the proper training. Let me give you a brief analogy on this. A few weeks ago, I was playing with my young son and somehow ended up getting poked in my eye very badly, right? Had to go to the doctor. They put a patch over my one eye. It was very tight, could not move it anything else, okay? He said, a few days, take the patch off, you'll be good to go. So I walked out, I'm like, listen, I've got one good eye, one bad eye. It doesn't really matter. I can see what I'm doing. I know exactly what's going on because I got this one good eye. Of course, what happens? Over the next couple of days, I ended up stubbing every single toe on both feet, banging into stuff, and the stuff that I thought was going to be easy wasn't easy at all. And the reason was I thought one eye was good enough. Let me take it back to tax sale investing. When people get into this business, buy properties, sell properties. That's it. Pretty simple, right? No, it's not that simple. There's so many laws and processes and strategies and procedures and things to look out for that you oftentimes, as a new tax sale investor, you don't know what you don't know until it's too late. There's all this stuff out here and you think you have everything dialed in, but instead there's so much other stuff you don't even realize exists until it's too late and until you've lost money. Don't be that person, please. Another common reason for failure is that people do understand due diligence is important, but they only perform what I call surface level due diligence. This is where, you look at Zillow and maybe even you look at a picture or two that you found somewhere online and you place a bid just off that information. When you're investing in tax defaulted real estate, the county handles the process, or they might contract it out to a third party. Their goal is to get that property back on the tax rolls once again. That is their job. Their job is not to be marketers. They aren't going to do surveys, and they aren't going to provide detailed property reports for you to go over. This is not the MLS that realtors use. They have zero liability. They're selling that legally described real estate, and that's it. Whatever pictures, whatever information they have, it doesn't matter. Everything relies on your shoulders. You, as the investor, must perform all the research. You must know the history of that property, the value, what is and what isn't on that property, what you can, what you can't do with that property, what the local laws are, how they apply. You must know everything about that property. And I have dozens and dozens of hours that are completely free on YouTube and on my podcast to teach you how to research properties. Then, of course, inside the Tax Law Academy, we go in deep, granular type processes on how to research properties to make sure you don't screw up. The fact is that if you buy something that ends up being worthless, you only have yourself to blame. The next one, impatience. I did a podcast run to this last week, and this is one of the most frustrating things to me personally. Someone hears about tax sale investing. They watch one or two training videos, then they go to a couple of auctions, they don't win a single property, they proceed to stomp their feet and then whine about how this business just doesn't work. Well, newsflash, this business does work. It's probably you who does not work. That's the brass version, I know. But if you think you can walk into your first ever auction and walk out with a $10,000 profit in your pocket, this is not going to be the business for you. This is real estate investing. We are investing in expensive assets. And when you do it properly, you're going to make lots of money. But it's not a deal we're going to get rich overnight. It does take time. As I mentioned last week, I've had students before who took a year to buy their first property, then they absolutely crushed it, and they're continuing to crush it. They make more money in a week than many people make an entire year. Impatience leads to rushed decisions, which will end up in failure. And the last one I will discuss is lack of vision. This might be one of the more interesting things that I see that lead to failure. And there's really two ways to approach this one. The first one is that you just lack creative vision. You don't see things the way you should. You're looking for the same thing over and over again that does not exist or maybe just no longer exists. It's important that you constantly evolve and you constantly look for stuff in a creative and progressive manner when it comes to this business. And then the second way that we can apply this is when it comes to growth and moving forward. This requires vision to see the possibilities, to determine how you'll expand your business and how you'll increase your income. And I've got training material on this inside the Academy. It's some of my most popular material, but what I want you to understand is that if you do the same thing over and over and over again, you'll eventually get bored and your income will stop and eventually it's going to start dropping. So what I want you to understand is you need to have vision to constantly evolve and constantly move forward and grow. So if you don't, you're definitely going to reach failure at some point or another. Again, these are the 5 most common reasons that I see people fail in this business. We have the shiny object syndrome, lack of understanding, they don't take due diligence seriously, they're impatient, or they just have lack of vision. And the truth is that I completely get it. Much of this stuff you might not even understood could lead to failure until I explain them to you today. So I want you to do everything in your power to avoid all these issues and any other potential issues that could drag you down. And so much of this stems around receiving the proper training. That's going to wrap up today's episode. If you are looking for that training, I have produced hundreds and hundreds of hours worth of training materials. Obviously, this podcast is a great place to start, as is my YouTube channel. When you're ready for me to help you fill in all the knowledge gaps that you need to see tax law success, I highly suggest you head on over to TaxLawAcademy.com. And while you're there, we got 2 great resources. Number 1, the Tax Sale Playbook. The book itself is free. Just help us cover shipping costs to get it from our warehouse to your front door. And of course, the leading tax sale investment program, the step-by-step comprehensive approach that many of my students have seen success with, is available when you go to TaxLawAcademy.com and you click on join and you become a member of the Tax Law Academy. Guys, that's it for today's podcast. I really hope you found this helpful. And as always, if you did, please take a few seconds out of your day to leave us a 5-star rating and some positive feedback comments. We are so thankful for each and every one of you who have taken the time to listen and to learn from us and who have taken the time to leave those reviews. Hey, take care, folks. Bye-bye.